crack, guys? Welcome back to my channel. It's Kazzy, and in today's video I'm going to be sharing with you all of the books that I read in January of 2019. It's been 84 years, but we're finally through January. Is it just me, or was January like 1,000 years long? It's always the way. Everybody says always the way that January feels like it's the longest month of the year, and I feel like I've been like through 5 years or 84 or 1,000 years before we got to January 30 freaking first. But nevertheless, got through it, and even though I felt like it was 84 years, I got through a grand total of 5 books. Within those books, I had a couple of 5-star reads. I keep hitting my fucking chair. My chair. As I said, within those 5 books, I had a couple of 5-star reads, a 4-star, and a couple of 3 stars. And like always, I'm going to go through them, tell you my thoughts on them, and yeah, that's pretty much what a wrap up is. I don't know why I felt like explaining it. But let's just talk about some books. So the first book that I read in 2019 was The Book Thief by Markus Zusak. This has been one of the books that I've had for a couple of years now. This is probably one of the first books that I hauled when I started talking about books on my channel. When I went back to that first book haul, I'm like going, had I read all of those books from that book haul? This one let me down, and another one. This book I picked up actually at the end of 2018. I started it at the start of December, but this book, oh my goodness, I give it 3 stars. I know a lot of people give it a 5-star rating because it is so impactful and the story of it is just so poignant. For me, it was actually more 3 stars. If you don't know what The Book Thief is about, it follows a girl, Liesel, who is with foster parents in Germany during World War II, and it's narrated by Death, and from the very start you know what is actually going to happen because he tells you. And it follows that story and how Liesel then discovers her love of books and what books mean to her and how they help her through World War II. From the get-go, I really loved this book because it is narrated by Death and because he tells you what is exactly going to happen. Yet for me, there was just something lacking in this book. I can't put my finger on what it was, but I do know that I didn't really gel well with Markus Zusak's style of writing. There were times when I was like, yes, I am loving this. I'm loving this imagery and what is actually going on. And then there are other times where I'm like, really, that's how you're going to portray this to me? I have the same issue with Maggie Stiefvater's writing in The Raven Cycle. There's one sentence that will forever live with me with this book, and that is, the door opened fluently. That's not a word that you really associate with a door opening. It's fluidly or something like that, but fluently describes like a language to me. And Maggie Stiefvater did the same thing with something falling from a coffee table, and she said that it cracked with a diseased smash. No. There were moments like that throughout this book where I just did not gel well with the writing style, and that really took away from my enjoyment of it. There were characters in here that I really didn't like at all. The ones I'm supposed to like, I didn't really particularly like. I didn't particularly like Liesel, for all that matter. I liked the foster father more, but nevertheless I am glad that I read it and that I can tick it off my book bucket list. But I'm just disappointed that I didn't love it as much as I thought I would have, because Haley and Bookline really raves about this book. But nevertheless, I'm glad I read it, and that, as I said, it's off my book bucket list. After that, I picked up Vengeful by V.E. Schwab, which is the much anticipated sequel of Vicious. I read Vicious back in 2017 and thoroughly enjoyed it. I loved that it was it was like Deadpool meets X-Men meets Sanctuary. I loved it. And so Vengeful takes up 5 years after Vicious, and oh my god, does this hit the ground running. I give this 5 stars because it was just incredible. It did take me a while to get used to the chapter styles, because like with Vicious, it does jump around throughout the years and to different people, and it does take a while to get used to it because you're just used to reading books that have such a more linear trajectory when it comes to chapters. But this one was all over the board, and it just took a little bit to get used to. I loved it. I loved it so much. I love V.E. Schwab for the characters that she creates. Marcella in particular, oh my god, she is incredible. She's everything that I kind of want in a femme fatale, don't fuck with me kind of woman. She was like, everything that she did, I was like, yes bitch, love her. Without giving like too much away about this, I love the character development of it. I love the way that Victor is. I love the way that Eli is. I love Victor's development. I love Eli's development. There were parts of this where I was just like thinking, oh my gosh, this is just like something that happens in like Arrow or in Sanctuary. This is what I wanted from Sanctuary. This is what I wanted from this, that, and the other. It was just incredible, and I am so glad that V.E. Schwab stuck with this, and she did not want to just hand over a manuscript that she did not love. She completely rewrote Vengeful from scratch with like 5 months to go until her deadline, or 2 months to go until her deadline. She just was like, no, I'm not happy with this, scrapped it, and then wrote this absolute gem. I could not put this down, and when I did, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to keep on reading. It is just incredible. After that, I listened to the audiobook of The Angel's Game by Carlos Ruiz Zafón, which is the second book in the Cemetery of Forgotten books series. It's actually the prequel to The Shadow of the Wind, which I find quite peculiar because it says it's the sequel to it, but it's actually a prequel because it's set about 20 years before The Shadow of the Wind, and I absolutely fell in love with it. Like with all of Carlos Ruiz Zafón's books, you get a lot of storytelling. You find out a lot about a lot of people because they all go to different people and they find out different stories and they are told different stories. And I have fallen in love with that concept of a book, because usually in a book you're told what just happens, but these characters are all told themselves a story within a story, and it is incredible. And I can't particularly explain what The Angel's Game is about, but it's about an author who is like writing these articles for this magazine newspaper under a different pseudonym, and he then is approached by a publisher to write a book, but there's something untoward about this character, and he finds out about some other dealings that this man has had, and so he starts to investigate, and it becomes a bit dangerous, and he finds out that, you know, not all is what it seems, and it's all very suspicious. It just sucks you in, and as I was listening to the audiobook for it, it's a different narrator than from The Shadow of the Wind, but I didn't mind that. He was still a brilliant narrator. The characters are just brought to life. Barcelona is brought to life, and I just loved everything. I loved every twist and turn. I was living for it. I was breathing for it. I was like just right there, like going, right, what's happening next? Oh my gosh, no. Don't go in there. It was that kind of book. It was just brilliant, and I love the way that it did set up for The Shadow of the Wind, and yeah, I can't wait to read the next one in the series. And of course, it was 5 stars. I am useless at telling what rating I give a book. I'm like thinking, do I say it at the start or at the end? And when I think I'm going to say it at the start, I just forget and then just go on to the end. I suck. After that, I picked up An Unkindness of Magicians by Cat Howard, or in proper Northern Irish, Cat Hard. Yeah. It's actually like hired, but like 1,000 times faster, so Cat Howard. Probably sound better if Liam Neeson says it. I gave this book 4 stars. I'd never heard about this book before on BookTube, but I stumbled across Murphy Napier's channel, and she talks about this book quite a lot, and it sounded intriguing to me. This is set in New York City, where there is the seen world and the unseen world, which is the world of magicians. Not wizards, they do not like that word. They are magicians. And every 20 years they have, what is it called? A turning. The heads of magical households elect a champion, a family member, or a magician for hire, and begin a series of duels to determine who is going to be the next leader for the next 20 years. But the turning has come early, after only 13 years, and Ian Merlin, the heir to the most powerful house in the unseen world, has been elected to become the champion of his father's chief rival, House Prospero. Enter Sydney, an unknown magician from a candidate house, an outsider easily dismissed among the established wealth and power of the unseen world. What the unseen world will soon learn is that Sydney is a formidable duelist with power that hasn't been seen in decades, and she has a score to settle. This hit the ground running. I loved this book. It was so good. I love the way that it ties in, you know, with the Arthurian elements. I could see it quite a lot of kind of early magic ties to this because House Merlin, there's a House Morgan, which to me is like Morgan Le Fay or Morgana Le Fay. I love those little nods. But what I loved about this is that it really delves deep into the politics of magic and where magic actually stems from, and how they are so ignorant to where magic comes from and how they can keep magic. It also ties in a little bit with Harry Potter because like they don't like outsiders, because there are ones from the scene world that are born with magic and they're like, how are you born with magic? You're not a magician. They do have those prejudices against other people, which of course you get from Harry Potter with the mudbloods and the half-breeds and half-bloods and all of that jazz. So there were a lot of ties like that in this book. It was a great read. Kat Howard has a really interesting writing style. I really enjoyed it. She really writes the jewels so well that you really get sucked into them. It really kept my attention, and it was just a really great read, and I really recommend it if you like the likes of Harry Potter. It's a very adult book. If you're an adult and you want something that has a bit more magic in it as well, it's just really, really good. And the last book that I picked up in January, which was a 3-star read, was Rose Under Fire by Elizabeth Wein, which is the companion to Codename Verity. This one actually follows an American pilot working for the ATA during World War II in England, and she gets captured during a flight because there are these pilotless bombs that are sent to their targets, and so she comes across one and she tries to knock it out of the sky but ends up getting lost and getting intercepted by Germans, and then she's sent to Ravensbrück, which is a concentration camp in Germany. This is actually told more like a journalistic style because at the start of the book you find out that Rose has been given a journal and she's just like writing, whereas Queenie in the first one, she's been given this task to translate everything that she's been given, but she's actually just writing out her story. At the start you get her having her normal life as an ATA pilot. She's like doing this, she's doing that, somebody's getting married, they're having some fun, and then it goes into her memoir about being in a concentration camp. I did give it 3 stars, but there was just something about it that I felt like it was lacking because it is a YA book. There are times when Elizabeth Wein does not shy away from anything that, you know, is sensitive, but there were just times I felt like I wanted more. I wanted it to be more impactful. I wanted to be more hard-hitting, but there were just times when I felt like it was lacking in this book. And I also find myself being quite confused during this book when she's describing things. I just like felt like I lost it a little bit, which probably brought down my rating. But nevertheless, I really enjoyed it. Also, Rose at the time wasn't a very likable character. I didn't like her all that much. I kind of liked the supporting characters a lot more than I did Rose. All in all, it's still a very good read. I think I would highly recommend it to a lot of people. And what I found interesting was I actually finished this on World Holocaust Memorial Day. And so you're seeing all of these documents and all of these videos on Auschwitz and Birkenau and Ravensbrück and all of the concentration camps and how this whole Holocaust disrupted so many lives and ended so many lives. It was just such a great time to read it. It's still a very, very good book and I very much recommend it. It just did not hit home just in the same way that I kind of thought it would be, in my opinion, if that made sense. So there you have it, guys. Those are all of the 5 books that I read in January. I had a very good reading month. As I said, I'm very happy that I got to a lot of these books. I'm very happy that I got to Vengeful finally, because I've had it in my room since September and I've wanted to read it since then. Every single month I'm only going, right, I'm going to get to Vengeful. Nope, I don't have time to read that because, as I said, last year I was getting very close to the wire of getting to my reading goal. And I'm very happy that I got to The Book Thief finally. So let me know in the comments down below what books you read in January. Are any of these on your TBR, or have you read them previously in the past? Let me know. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next video.